Johnny Carson was not just the king of late night, but the ultimate symbol of television power in America for more than 30 years. With a single line, a raised eyebrow, he could make millions laugh from their living rooms. Yet behind the stage lights, Carson held an even deadlier weapon, his infamous blacklist. With just one silent decision, he could end the career of anyone, from rising talents to established legends. For entertainers, an invite to The Tonight Show was a golden ticket, but being erased by Carson meant the doors of Hollywood slammed shut. Tonight, we unveil this shocking secret and revisit 8 stars who once shone brightly, only to see their lives take a tragic turn after crossing paths with Johnny Carson. Joan Rivers, whose real name was Joan Alexandra Malinsky, was born into a Jewish immigrant family in Brooklyn. From a young age, she dreamed of becoming a comedian, but her path was filled with obstacles. In the 1960s, when women were rarely given a chance on the comedy stage, she was often dismissed and rejected. Johnny Carson was the first to truly recognize her unique talent. In 1965, Carson invited Joan to appear on The Tonight Show. Within just a few minutes, her sharp and witty humor had the audience roaring with laughter. Carson immediately turned to the crowd and declared, "This girl is going to be a big star." It was a prophecy that changed her life. After that, Joan not only became a regular guest but was also chosen by Carson to guest host in his absence, an honor very few comedians ever received. For years, they maintained a rare friendship in the entertainment world. Carson treated Joan like a daughter, while she saw him as a mentor. They shared long dinners, late-night phone calls, and worries about their careers. This bond gave Joan confidence that one day, when Carson retired, she would be his rightful successor in The Tonight Show's golden chair. But NBC never made such a promise. As she approached her 50s, Joan feared her career might fade. In 1986, Fox made her an irresistible offer, to host her own late-night show in the same time slot as Carson, with a salary of $10 million, a staggering sum at the time. Joan accepted. The worst part was that Carson didn't hear it from Joan herself. He read it in Variety magazine. For a man who had grown up with deep abandonment issues, this was more than business. To Carson, it was personal betrayal, a stab to the heart. The next day, he quietly entered his office and issued an order: Joan Rivers would never again appear on The Tonight Show. The consequences were immediate. All footage and records of Joan were erased from NBC archives. Guest hosts were explicitly told never to mention her name on air. Carson never insulted Joan publicly, but he never forgave her either. He coldly remarked, "She's dead to me." Meanwhile, Joan's new show on Fox faced endless struggles. Her husband, Edgar Rosenberg, who was the show's producer, was under immense pressure from critics and the press. Ratings were low, and comparisons to Carson were constant. Within months, the show was cancelled. Edgar's health and spirit collapsed under the strain, and he passed away not long after, under tragic circumstances. Joan's career fell apart in an instant, and the personal loss nearly broke her completely. She tried to reach out to Carson, phone calls, handwritten letters, mutual friends, all in vain. He never picked up, never responded, and maintained silence until the end of his life. That coldness drove Joan into depression. Although she later rebuilt her career with Fashion Police and became a familiar presence on Hollywood's red carpets, that emotional wound never truly healed. In a 2012 interview, when asked whether she still felt pain over her broken relationship with Carson, Joan admitted, "Yes. I never got over losing him." It was a bitter confession, yet also proof of the deep bond they once shared. The story of Joan Rivers is not just the tragedy of a lost friendship, but also a reflection of the ruthless nature of show business. In that world, a single decision, a single conflict, can change the destiny of a star forever. Wayne Newton, the iconic Las Vegas entertainer, began gaining fame in the 1960s and reached the peak of his career during the 1970s and 1980s with his performances in Las Vegas. Wayne Newton was celebrated for his smooth voice and captivating stage presence. But behind the dazzling lights, he had a fiery temperament, prone to outbursts, which ultimately landed him on Johnny Carson's infamous blacklist. The incident occurred in 1980 when Newton was invited to appear on The Tonight Show, a program every performer dreamed of gracing at least once in their lifetime. The show went on as usual, with an eager audience and Carson's familiar humor. However, during the conversation, Carson made a joke about Newton's sexuality. To the viewers, it seemed like a harmless quip, a typical playful jab. But for Newton, it was a public humiliation, striking at his deeply sensitive pride. Immediately after the show, his anger erupted uncontrollably. Backstage, tensions escalated. Newton stormed toward Carson, yelling insults and even raising his fist. Staff rushed in to intervene, pulling him away to prevent a real disaster. Carson, known for his pride and composure, rarely lost his cool. Yet this time, faced with Newton's direct fury, he didn't need words or warnings. A strict ban was issued immediately. Wayne Newton would never appear on The Tonight Show again. The consequences went far beyond the stage. Newton's name vanished from recordings, and all related footage was removed from NBC's archives. In the entertainment world, no one dared speak of the incident. The altercation became a dark secret, a stain Newton could never erase, while Carson remained completely silent. No one realized that Carson's seemingly harmless joke, enjoyed by millions, could almost cost a famous performer his chance on national television. Newton retreated from the public eye for a while, reflecting on his own temper. Although he later continued to perform successfully in Las Vegas, that confrontation served as a lasting lesson. In the world of showbiz, fame and power can be separated by a single moment of anger. The incident also highlighted Carson's enormous influence. With just one decision, he could alter the fate of a star. Decades later, the memory of that night remained etched in Newton's mind. He once shared in an interview, "I learned that in your career, you sometimes can't let your emotions control you. A single moment of anger can change everything." Newton's story is not only a cautionary tale about temperament but also a testament to Johnny Carson's power, the man who could make all of America laugh yet erase a star from television history with silent authority. Over the years, Wayne Newton continued to shine in the hearts of Las Vegas audiences, but the memory of that backstage fight and Carson's ban remained unforgettable. It serves as a reminder that even the most proud stars must learn to balance talent, emotions, and humility. In the glamorous yet harsh world of show business, a fleeting moment of anger can undo years of hard work in the blink of an eye. Charles Grodin, a talented comedian and film actor, first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1969. At that time, Johnny Carson was at the peak of his power, the undisputed king of American television, and every star dreamed of appearing on a show at least once. Grodin, still young, immediately stood out with a completely different style. Instead of being polite and agreeable like other guests, he often pretended to be annoyed, answering Carson slowly, sharply, and sometimes with a hint of sarcasm. The audience laughed uncontrollably, but Carson did not take it as a joke. For him, this was not comedy, it was a subtle challenge to his authority and reputation. Grodin became a regular guest on the show. In 1972, he appeared with his signature style, long pauses, short and firm responses to Carson, leaving the audience roaring with laughter. These appearances left a lasting impression on viewers, but Carson began to feel increasingly irritated. Grodin's subtle defiance gradually became a problem for the king of television. There was no scandal or betrayal, yet Grodin had turned himself into an annoying figure in Carson's eyes. The turning point came in 1977 during a special taping. Grodin made a quip about Carson's fast-paced talking and the way he controlled the show. The audience laughed loudly, but Carson, known for his pride, remained silent for the rest of the evening. After that night, Grodin noticed a change. Invitations to appear on The Tonight Show grew less frequent, and eventually, he no longer appeared regularly. By 1979, the situation became clear. Grodin realized he was no longer being invited by Carson. Every effort to appear on the show failed. Even at entertainment events, people around him avoided mentioning the times he had provoked Carson. His name disappeared from the guest list, and his television career faced an invisible barrier. Carson's absolute power could overshadow all of his achievements. However, Grodin did not let this defeat him. In the 1980s, he continued to build his film and stage career, appearing in movies such as The Heartbreak Kid and Midnight Run. Though he gained fame on the big screen, the memory of the Tonight Show incident remained vivid. In a 1990 interview, Grodin admitted, "I knew I was playing with fire. I had made myself the annoying one, but that was my way of expressing my personality and difference. Still, Johnny Carson had unmatched power, and I learned a life lesson from it." Charles Grodin's story illustrates the harsh reality of the American entertainment industry. A single decision or small action can alter a star's fate. He did not betray anyone, nor commit an ethical mistake, yet his excessive creativity and striking personality landed him on the blacklist of the most powerful man in television at that time. Nevertheless, Grodin is remembered as a talented and unique actor. Losing access to The Tonight Show never destroyed his career entirely but served as a testament to Johnny Carson's immense influence. For Grodin, it was not merely a story of being removed from the guest list, it was a lesson in balancing talent, individuality, and adaptability in the highest echelons of power. Decades later, Charles Grodin remains beloved by audiences. His sharp exchanges on The Tonight Show, though they caused friction with Carson, are still considered a memorable part of American television history. They remind us that in the world of showbiz, power can change a person's life in an instant, and excessive creativity can sometimes be a double-edged sword. Jonathan Winters, a stand-up comedy icon and beloved figure across America in the 1960s and 1970s, captivated audiences with his boundless imagination and transformative performances. He was renowned for his monologues, effortlessly embodying characters ranging from soldiers and professors to imaginary creatures. Fans adored Winters for his impulsiveness, freedom, and the unexpected humor he brought to the stage, but those same qualities put him squarely in Johnny Carson's crosshairs. Winters first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1966, at a time when Carson had established the program as a model of precision and control. From the very first appearances, Winters displayed a tendency to ramble, drift off topic, and suddenly shift subjects without warning. While audiences laughed, Carson, who valued order and complete control over the stage, grew increasingly weary. Each time Winters appeared, Carson had to subtly steer him back on track, yet the comedian's unpredictable energy often threw the show off its planned rhythm. After several attempts at patience, Carson began quietly altering his approach. By around 1972, Jonathan Winters was appearing less frequently on The Tonight Show. His name, once warmly welcomed by audiences, gradually disappeared from the guest roster. This was not a public reprimand, but a subtle and highly effective decision. Winters remained beloved by viewers, yet for Carson, he had exceeded the bounds of acceptable unpredictability, and the show no longer had room for his impulses. This story highlights an important lesson. In the American entertainment world, power does not solely rest on talent or fame, but also on the ability to control one's environment and adhere to professional discipline. Winters was a remarkable artist, yet even a national idol could be humbled if he disrupted the order Carson meticulously maintained. Many assumed fame and skill would shield artists from such pressures, but The Tonight Show proved that no one was untouchable. After being removed from the guest list, Jonathan Winters did not abandon his career. He continued performing stand-up, acting in films and television shows, and remained recognized as one of America's greatest comedians. Yet the experience of being quietly sidelined by Carson remained a pivotal lesson in tact, control, and respect for authority within the entertainment industry. Winters' life and career underscore that even the biggest stars must balance personal creativity with the rules of their professional environment. Johnny Carson, wielding ultimate authority on The Tonight Show, demonstrated that fame does not grant immunity from the decisions of those in power. In American television history, Jonathan Winters is not only remembered as a stand-up icon but also as living proof that even a national idol can be dethroned. Bob Hope, the legendary American entertainer with a career spanning decades, was once Johnny Carson's favorite guest. For many years, they formed a perfect duo on The Tonight Show, delivering seamless comedic banter that had audiences across the country laughing out loud. Their bond extended beyond the professional realm. Carson admired Hope's talent and legacy, while Hope held Carson in high regard and trust. They shared dinners, exchanged behind-the-scenes stories, and supported each other through the challenges of show business. The 1980s brought an inevitable turning point. Age began to affect Bob Hope. His memory faltered, he would forget lines, repeat old jokes, and sometimes drift off topic during the show. While audiences continued to adore him, Carson faced a growing challenge with each appearance. NBC, driven by Hope's fame and viewer ratings, continued to insist on his presence. Yet every time, Carson had to carefully manage the program, masking the awkward moments of his aging friend. This prolonged strain gradually wore him down. Carson realized that Hope's appearances no longer brought the spontaneity and energy they once did. Instead, the show became heavier, occasionally losing its rhythm as Carson adjusted Hope's storytelling. The late-night king, who valued flexibility and total control, began losing joy in the effort to uphold his friend's image. The once solid friendship began to show cracks, not due to personal conflict or betrayal, but because of the harsh realities of age and profession. Tensions peaked in the late 1980s, as NBC continued to push for Hope's appearances while audiences eagerly anticipated them. Carson began limiting his appearances, reserving them for special occasions, yet still felt the pressure. Colleagues observed Carson becoming colder whenever Hope appeared, partly to hide his frustration before the longtime friend. The friendship between Carson and Hope reveals a harsh truth in entertainment: even the strongest bonds can be tested by time and circumstance. Nonetheless, Carson maintained respect for Hope off camera. He never publicly criticized or harmed his aging friend. On air, Carson preserved his grace and subtlety, protecting Hope's legendary image in the eyes of the public. Ultimately, Bob Hope stepped away from The Tonight Show, making way for a new generation. While their on-screen banter was no longer the same, the memories of their enduring collaboration remained a significant part of Carson's life. It serves as proof that in show business, age and professional realities can strain even the closest relationships without betrayal or personal conflict. This story reminds audiences that behind the laughter are silent sacrifices, efforts to maintain appearances, and mutual respect. Johnny Carson, wielding ultimate authority on The Tonight Show, demonstrated that even the closest friend could become a challenge when time alters energy and ability. In American television history, the friendship between Carson and Hope remains a deeply emotional chapter, simultaneously admirable and poignant, reflecting the complex interplay of talent, age, and fame. Chevy Chase, the iconic comedian from Saturday Night Live, first appeared on The Tonight Show in 1976, at the peak of his career. Audiences adored his witty, sharp humor, sometimes laced with sly arrogance. However, behind the talent was an attitude that could be off-putting, a personality eager to outshine anyone, even the host himself, Johnny Carson. From his very first appearance, Carson noticed that Chase was not just a clever comedian, but someone who liked to challenge authority. Instead of being polite, Chase often made sarcastic remarks, sometimes deliberately trying to overshadow Carson in front of the audience. To viewers, it was comedic gold, but to Carson, it was a breach of control. The television king, known for his pride and insistence on respecting the show's format, saw Chase's antics as a challenge to his authority. The turning point came in 1977 during a memorable taping. Chase mocked Carson about his hosting style, highlighting generational differences in humor. The audience laughed uproariously, but Carson remained silent, unusually cold. Everyone backstage could feel the tension. Carson rarely lost his temper, but this time, Chase's arrogance had crossed the line. After a few more appearances, Chase noticed the change. Invitations to The Tonight Show dwindled and eventually stopped entirely. A golden opportunity to make a mark on a national stage, one every comedian dreamed of, vanished, all due to an inflated ego. Colleagues recognized that in show business, talent alone does not always overcome the power and pride of the host. The consequences extended beyond missing the show. Chase's reputation in some parts of the entertainment world was affected. Other television opportunities that could have propelled him forward were limited. This highlighted Carson's immense influence. A single silent decision, a refusal to forgive, could alter a star's destiny. Yet, Chevy Chase did not let this define his career. Throughout the 1980s, he continued to shine on the big screen with films like Caddyshack, National Lampoon's Vacation, and Fletch. His comedic talent remained celebrated, but the Tonight Show experience and the lesson in humility stayed with him. Chase remarked in a 1985 interview, "I learned that in entertainment, humor is not enough. You must also respect the host. One moment of arrogance can cost you everything." Chase's story is a classic example that arrogance comes at a price. Carson never publicly recounted the incident, he didn't need to. By simply limiting Chase's appearances, he sent a clear message: in the world of television power, those who dare to compete must pay the price. This was not just a lesson for Chase but a warning for anyone stepping onto The Tonight Show or any major platform. Talent matters, but attitude and respect are crucial for lasting success. Decades later, Chevy Chase remains beloved by audiences, but the memory of those tapings with Carson and the lesson about arrogance is an unforgettable part of his artistic journey. It serves as a reminder that in entertainment, a single moment of overconfidence or excessive sarcasm can reshape the destiny of even the most iconic stars. Don Rickles, famously known as the King of Insults, was one of the most iconic comedians in the United States during the 1960s and 1970s. With his sharp, direct, and sometimes biting humor, Rickles could make audiences roar with laughter. Johnny Carson was among his biggest fans, frequently inviting Rickles to appear on The Tonight Show to add a lively touch to the program. Their relationship initially was very close. Rickles considered Carson a mentor and friend, while Carson appreciated Rickles' unique comedic talent. However, everything took a tense turn in 1972 during a memorable taping. Rickles, at the peak of his career, known for mocking anyone without restraint, teased Carson directly, highlighting differences in age, style, and even Carson's hosting approach. The audience laughed uproariously, enjoying the daring humor, but Carson, famous for his calm and pride, did not move. He sat silently, giving a cold stare, sending an unspoken message: even as friends, boundaries must be respected. After that taping, the relationship grew strained. Carson never banned Rickles entirely from the show, but invitations became scarce. In later appearances, Carson kept his distance and strictly controlled the program, limiting Rickles' chances to disrupt the flow. Colleagues in the entertainment industry noticed that Rickles remained beloved by fans, yet Carson's absolute authority ensured that all humor stayed within boundaries. Rickles once said in a 1980 interview, "I went too far with Johnny once. The audience laughed, but for him, that was a limit I shouldn't have crossed. I realized that in this business, sometimes you have to know restraint." This clearly demonstrates that in American television, even close relationships can be tested if boundaries are crossed. Despite the setback, Rickles did not let it ruin his career. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he continued to appear on numerous TV shows, perform in Las Vegas, and leave a lasting mark on audiences with his bold yet refined humor. Each appearance preserved his signature biting style, but he learned to adjust to avoid crossing lines with powerful figures like Carson. Their relationship eventually normalized, with cordial meetings and greetings at entertainment events. While the original closeness was never fully restored, Rickles maintained respect for Carson, who paved the way for many comedians on The Tonight Show. Critics note that the incident highlights Carson's immense power. A small decision or subtle shift in attitude could determine a star's career. Don Rickles' story reminds us that in entertainment, humor must be paired with sensitivity and respect. Even close friends must recognize the power and influence of the host. Over decades, Rickles is remembered as a comedy legend who dared to challenge yet learned the lesson of balancing personality, talent, and respect in the highest echelons of showbiz. Rickles passed away in 2017, but the tale of friend or foe? With Carson remains a significant chapter in The Tonight Show's history, reminding audiences that even the most brilliant comedians must know their place in the world of entertainment. Tom Snyder, one of the prominent talk show hosts in American television during the 1970s, was known for his serious, deliberate, and sometimes dry style. His show, The Tomorrow Show, became a platform where artists, politicians, and celebrities engaged in deep, insightful conversations, less humorous but full of information and analysis. Johnny Carson, the king of The Tonight Show, once invited Snyder as a guest, a gesture that initially appeared respectful. In 1975, Snyder appeared on The Tonight Show to discuss trends in television and talk shows. Unlike other guests who brought humor and spontaneity, Snyder remained composed, focused on his points, and delivered his thoughts with a deliberate pace. The audience seemed somewhat puzzled by the tense atmosphere, and Carson, who cherished humor and controlled pacing, began to feel uncomfortable. Carson soon realized the truth: Snyder was not an ordinary guest. He was a potential competitor, a host capable of rivaling The Tonight Show in credibility and influence. Unlike comedians or singers, Snyder's strength lay in maintaining long, in-depth conversations that captivated viewers through knowledge, seriousness, and sharp interviewing skills. For Carson, this posed a threat that needed careful yet decisive management. After the first appearance, Snyder was invited only occasionally. In 1976, his final appearance on The Tonight Show unfolded tensely. Carson remained outwardly composed but had already decided Snyder was no longer a priority guest. From then on, Tom Snyder's name gradually disappeared from the guest list, never to be mentioned again on The Tonight Show. Even without scandal, public conflict, or personal betrayal, Snyder was effectively written out in the eyes of the most powerful figure in late-night television. The consequences extended further. Within the industry, other hosts realized Carson would not tolerate challengers to his throne. Competing talk shows faced greater difficulties, and even artists appearing with Snyder had to tread carefully. Snyder himself remarked in a 1980 interview, "I knew I could irritate Johnny Carson. I never did anything wrong, but just being myself was enough for him to see me as a threat." This illustrates Carson's near-absolute power on late-night television. A silent decision could sideline a colleague or limit their influence. Despite being removed from The Tonight Show, Snyder persevered. He continued hosting The Tomorrow Show and other talk shows in the 1980s, honing his style with deep analysis and interviews. Snyder remained beloved by a loyal audience and was recognized by critics as one of the most unique, serious talk show hosts in American television history. Tom Snyder's story serves as a reminder that in entertainment, power and fame are intertwined with invisible boundaries. Even without ethical missteps or scandals, simply presenting a distinct style could result in a powerful figure determining your place in showbiz. Carson, with his composure, pride, and absolute control, demonstrated this vividly. Over the decades, Snyder remained a symbol of serious, contemplative talk shows, standing apart from comedy or lively entertainment. His long, insightful interviews continue to receive critical acclaim. Though Carson wrote him out of The Tonight Show, Snyder's legacy endures, showing that in showbiz, talent does not always guarantee a place on the most powerful platform. Even though Johnny Carson left The Tonight Show in 1992 and has since passed away, he left behind a legacy that shines brilliantly yet casts deep shadows. His blacklist was more than just a backstage secret, it was proof of the absolute power one person could wield in the entertainment industry, where a single decision could turn a rising star into obscurity. 8 names that once stood at the pinnacle of fame now remain as reminders of harsh realities, of opportunities snatched away in a moment of anger or a mistake in Carson's eyes. Even today, audiences remain intrigued and awed. Was it his instinct for total control, or the lifelong fear of betrayal that drove him? One thing is certain: in the world of fame, power and celebrity are sometimes separated by nothing more than a silent decree.